The greatest enemy of justice is the silence of those who witness it. The streets of New York buzzed with the sound of honking horns, flashing lights, hurried steps, and overlapping conversations. People rushed past each other, immersed in their own worlds. But sometimes the greatest injustices are blatant, unnoticed by those too busy to care. Donald Trump had just finished a business meeting when he walked into a small, old-fashioned café, one of those places that have been around for decades. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and the dim light created a cozy but melancholy atmosphere. He chose one of the corner tables and casually observed the people around him. Most were glued to their phones, completely disconnected from their surroundings. But a few tables away, something caught his attention. An old man was sitting alone. His empty eyes stared ahead without seeing. The white cane beside him confirmed that he was blind. He had obviously ordered something, but nothing had arrived. Just then, a young waiter walked up to him with a grin. "Sir, we don't allow people to occupy tables without ordering something. You need to hurry up. You can't sit here all day for free, old man." The old man paused, his fingers brushing lightly against the tabletop. His voice, though gentle, carried a subtle tremor. "I've already placed my order, son. Just waiting for my coffee." The waiter rolled his eyes and turned to his coworkers, laughing sarcastically. "Is this guy blind? Poor old man probably can't even tell time." A few customers nodded with laughter. No one went inside, but one man watched. And he didn't stay silent, because he wasn't the kind of man who could keep silent about such bad treatment. Trump put down his coffee. His fingers tapped the table as a slow-burning anger built inside him. This man had lived decades of history, perhaps a veteran, a teacher, a hard-working citizen. And now, just because he was old, he was being treated as disposable. This was unacceptable. Not today, and it could never be like this. Still seated, Trump secretly took out his cell phone. With a steady hand, he started recording. The waiter finally placed a coffee cup in front of the old man, but with such force that the liquid almost spilled out. "Here, try drinking it. I hope you're not as incompetent as you are blind, and don't even think about pouring it out. You'll wipe it off in your blind state." A few customers laughed and dismissed the cruel words as ordinary humor. Trump's jaw clenched, his expression hardened. He could take it no longer. The old man reached for the cup, but his trembling hands struggled to find the handle. In his effort, he accidentally knocked over the coffee and spilled it on the table. The waiter's face wrinkled in anger. His playful sarcasm turned into real anger. "Are you kidding me? You made a mess everywhere. Maybe you should find shelter and leave instead of occupying a table here." The cafe fell silent. No one spoke, but everyone watched. Trump's fingers tightened around his phone. Enough is enough. He pocketed his phone, pushed his chair back, and slowly stood up. Each step towards the old man's desk created a powerful sound in the room. Conversation stopped. Eyes turned to him. Trump walked towards the waiter, his presence attracting attention. And then, in a voice so harsh it cut through the air, he spoke. "Is this how you treat your customers? What are you trying to do with your ridiculous arrogance?" Silence fell over the cafe. At first, the unshaken waiter stared at Trump, still smug. "Is there a problem, sir?" Trump's gaze locked with hers. "Not for me, but for you? It's a very big problem. What an arrogant ass you are." The waiter's confidence was shaken for the first time. Every customer in the cafe felt it. Something big was about to unfold. Silence. All eyes in the cafe were now on Donald Trump. His presence had completely changed the energy of the room. The smug grin on the waiter's face froze. Trump was standing tall, dominating the space with his presence. "Is this how you treat people, and what gives you the right?" The waiter shrugged, trying to maintain his arrogant demeanor. "So what? He's just a blind old man. Does that matter? I don't think he deserves any better treatment." Trump nodded slowly, his voice growing harsher. "It matters, son. Very important." Trump turned to the old man, still trying to find his coffee cup. He had witnessed it all, the deliberate delay, the taunts, the humiliation. Looking at the old man's trembling hands, he made a decision. "Sir, I'll get you the best coffee here." The elderly man slightly tilted his head toward the voice, but had no idea who was speaking to him. He only sensed kindness. "You don't have to trouble yourself, son." Trump smiled faintly and placed a reassuring hand on the man's shoulder. No trouble at all. You've lived with honor in this country, but it seems some people have forgotten that." Trump took a deep breath and then turned to the waiter. His tone remained calm, but there was an undeniable edge to it. "What's your name?" The waiter frowned. "Mike." Trump nodded. "Mike, I'll be watching you and your boss very closely from now on. This man will receive the best service in this café, or I'll make sure this place is forgotten in history." The tension in the café was suffocating. No one dared to move. Just then, the café manager, sensing trouble, rushed inside. His expression shifted to pure panic when he realized who was standing in the middle of his business. "Mr. Trump, how can I assist you?" Trump raised a hand, pointing at the waiter. "Fire him." The manager hesitated. "Excuse me?" Trump's gaze didn't waver. "Fire him. If this establishment allows employees who humiliate the elderly, then I will never set foot here again. And trust me, after today neither will anyone else." The waiter took a step back, his face draining of color. "Mr. Trump, please. It was just a mistake." Trump shook his head. "No, son. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. And choices have consequences." The last traces of arrogance disappeared from Mike's face. Justice was being served. After ensuring the waiter was removed, Trump turned back to the elderly man. "You don't have to worry anymore, sir. From now on, you will always be treated with the respect you deserve." The old man offered a faint smile. "I never ask for much, son. I just want to be treated with dignity." Trump's expression hardened, and that's the biggest problem. No one should have to remind others that they deserve respect. But Trump didn't stop there. He took the story to social media. "Have we reached a point where disrespecting the elderly is normal? A man who has lived through decades of history can't even get a cup of coffee? It's time to change that." The post exploded online. Millions of people watched the video. The outrage spread like wildfire. People rallied in support of the elderly man. The hashtag #RespectOurElders trended nationwide. The café, now under heavy backlash, was forced to release a public apology. Every employee underwent training to ensure elderly customers were treated with care. But Trump wasn't done yet. He personally invited the elderly man to the White House. At a special event, he shook the man's hand and turned to the media. "No one in this country should be humiliated just for growing old. These men and women built this nation for us. It's time we show them the respect they deserve." The cameras flashed. The room erupted into applause. And in that moment, the elderly man wiped a tear from his eye and whispered, "Thank you. I thought people had forgotten about us." But this wasn't just about one man. This was the start of a movement. Sometimes a small act sparks a revolution. The video Trump posted on social media spread like wildfire. Within hours, millions had watched it. News stations covered the injustice, talk shows debated it, and thousands of people flooded social media with messages of support under the hashtag #RespectOurElders. But this wasn't just about one man. This was about the countless elderly individuals who faced neglect and mistreatment every day, people whose struggles often went unseen or ignored. Trump knew this was bigger than a single incident, and he wasn't about to let it end there. A national awareness campaign was launched to combat mistreatment of the elderly. Restaurants, cafes, and public institutions were required to undergo training on providing age-friendly services. Businesses across the country introduced free coffee and discounts for senior citizens. But the most important moment came when Trump hosted a special ceremony at the White House. With the elderly man standing beside him, Trump shook his hand and delivered a message that echoed across the nation. "Our elders are here to be honored, not forgotten. This country will continue to stand as a nation that respects and values them." The room erupted into applause. People stood in ovation, clapping for the man who had been humiliated just days before. Tears welled in the elderly man's eyes as he wiped them away and whispered, "Thank you. I thought people had forgotten about us." That day, it wasn't just one man's life that changed. That day, an entire nation remembered what truly mattered. And it all began with one person refusing to stay silent.